Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 331 Shooting and Learning Formations. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with the team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. I have to start the show by apologizing for last week. We had a really interesting week, and those that live in Canada who listen will definitely know what I'm talking about. Rogers was completely out. So Rogers for us is they're a cell phone company and a cable provider. They're like a TELUS or a Bell, that type of thing. And they were out. Like there was no cell service. There was no internet. There was no TV. There was nothing. There was no way of communicating. And that had a really big impact on a lot of things. One, it had an impact on me just publishing the show last week, and two, on the soccer as well. Luckily, we didn't have any issues with games, but for those that did, it made things very difficult. So it was a really interesting week in that perspective from just like a life point of view. I don't know how else to say that. So really interesting week, but things are almost back to normal. Cell phone's fine, internet's fine. Cable is not so great. It's pretty spotty here and there. So, but it's okay so far. So as they say, on with the show. This past weekend we had our games. It was our first weekend of games since Canada Day weekend. I was able to watch two and a little bit. Three-ish games. We had our 2012 game, then we had our 2013 game, and also I got the end of our 2010 B team game. So our 2012 didn't do that great, to be honest. They played on turf, and I think the pace was just too quick for them. The passes, receiving the ball wasn't great, and it just wasn't a normal performance that we would give. Something was lacking. My VO didn't work simply because of what was going on with my phone and all that, so couldn't really go back and look at it, and that makes a big difference, which brings me to our sponsor today. VO is our sponsor, and every time that I use the VO cam and go back and watch the game, I learned something new, and the problem was I couldn't really learn a lot of new things. From what I remember from the game, all the goals that they scored were our mistakes in the back, trying to build out of the back. 7v7, I do try and encourage the players to build out of the back, but at a certain point, it just wasn't working, so we started kicking it long, which made the game better. We kept possession, I thought, most of the game. They didn't really keep possession, but again, we lose the ball in the back, and it's pretty easy to get scored on. Our 2013 about half of our team is away, and it's like that with all of our teams now. This is just the part of the summer where I guess everyone is away. So half of that team is gone, and that half happens to be the 2013 players that played with our 2012. So the players that played, other than about two players, were all brand new this year. So I thought we did okay, but again, not our usual Gladiator Soccer Academy performance. Not a lot of constant possession, switching the ball side to side, 1v1s. Just not really our team, but I thought that was okay. Our 2010 B team, the black team, we have a black and a gold team, so the black team is our B team, and they won, I think, 3-2, but I didn't get to see the game, so I don't know what happened there. But overall, a good weekend, and it really started to get me thinking on the 2013 because they're struggling with the formation and really how it works. and our 2010s and 12s also have stopped supporting. So today I'm going to talk about kind of going back to the basics and what I'm doing with that. And then I'm also going to talk about shooting as well. But before I do all that, I have some exciting news. For the first time that I've been alive, and I think it's the first time ever, the Canadian women's national team and the Canadian men's national team have qualified for the World Cup. The Canadian women's team have officially qualified for the World Cup, and that's not surprising. But what is surprising is that the men did it too. So this is great for Canadian soccer. I think Canada soccer as a whole has done a really great job. And if I'm being completely honest, I think John Herdman, the former coach of the women's team and now the coach of the men's team, has done a phenomenal job for Canada and Canada soccer. So he is kind of the one that I think has really had the biggest impact on the game. If you've heard my show before, you know that Ontario soccer and the district, I don't know how I feel about that. But Canada soccer and John Herdman, I will sing your praises until the end of soccer time. So congratulations to the women. I wanted to watch their game yesterday, but of course, Rogers, the cable didn't work well, so I couldn't watch the game. I caught the last 5 minutes where they were already, I think, winning. I think it was like 3-0. And from that, they did well for 5 minutes. So I don't know. But even those 5 minutes, I could tell this was a Canada team. Warriors. And I got to tell you this. I've been following the women's team way longer than I've been following the men's team. Just being honest there. And some of these women, in my opinion, are some of the best players in the world. There is Buchanan, who I think is one of the best defenders ever. She has such amazing composure in the back whenever she receives the ball. There is another great defender who I absolutely adore and think the absolute world of, Alicia Chapman. She is just a fierce defender. Like, I saw her play live. I don't know if I've said this story, but I won a prize long time ago, and I saw her and three other actually women's national team players practicing, and they asked me to pass some balls in. So I got to watch her, and she is phenomenal. So there's her. And then someone who I don't think gets enough credit is Adriana Leon. She is She is an absolute warrior. I absolutely adore her. She plays a forward role, but I think she's more of like a winger. She's a great midfielder. She's moving to Manchester United. She used to play, I think, for West Ham, but she's been on the team for a very long time, and she is amazing. And these three women, for me, really represent the ideology of what a Canadian player is, and it is just someone that works. These three women they will fight and they will fight, and if you are in their way, I feel sorry for you. So congratulations to the women's team. Congratulations to Bev, who is taking over the team since she has become head coach. They've won the gold medal, and now again going into the World Cup. So she's been doing a fantastic job since she took over for John Herdman. Yeah, and you know what? If you're out there in the U.S. or anywhere around the world and you don't know much about this women's team, the Canadian women's national team, I urge you to follow this team, not because I'm Canadian or anything like that. And it's a very special type of environment and type of player that they create, both in the women's side and the men's side. It's really what I want to create in a gladiator player, which is just these fierce warriors that get on the field and just battle. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They will go out and they will fight for everything. And you can really see that with this women's team. And I really think now with the men's team as well. And you can just see John Herdman doing the exact same thing that he did with the women's team. So really great for the Canadian program and super excited for the future. So I want to start talking about tactics, and tactics get a bad rep from a youth soccer point of view. There are so many coaches out there that think, let's let them play. Why do we need to worry about tactics at this age? And to that I say, kids need more credit. Kids are really smart. Kids can do so much. And I think if we do it in the right way and we teach it in the right way, then there is not only a place for it, but it's something that you should be doing with your players. Now, when I talk about tactics and positioning and all that stuff, I'm not talking about, having a 2-3-1, for example, just on the field in their positions and no one's moving, no one's doing anything. We pass the ball from side to side. That's not even close. I don't believe in that. What I believe in is to start with something like rondos and use that in for your tactics. So the basic of any rondo is to get us into our formation. So our rondos are always a 4v1 or 4v2. There are no more than that. Usually, if we go more, it's to add a forward and a neutral player. That's it. Sorry, not a neutral player. A player as a center mid. So then you have your goalkeeper, your two fullbacks, one center mid, and one forward. And the reason we do that is because in under 8, it's 5v5. So that's why we do it that way. And that teaches the players exactly how they're going to be moving. With our two defenders who are actually fullbacks, they move up to create a rondo at the top square. And then as soon as the ball travels back to the goalkeeper, then they move back to create a 4-player rondo on the bottom square. But essentially, for our 2-3-1, which is what we play 7v7, our 9v9, which is our 4-3-1, all we're doing is rondos. And the rondos come into play within the tactics. So I'm going to walk through it as best I can and just show you how this really works. Essentially, both of these are a double rondo. We think about the goalkeeper as the bottom, and we take the goalkeeper away. The goalkeeper is not part of the rondo. And then we have two rondos side by side. On one side, we have the fullback, the defender, the center mid, and the attacking mid all on the left side. Now, that same rondo is then done on the right side with the exact same player. So you have, if you're setting this up, the way that I set it up on my field was I put 3 cones, one on the end line, one in the center, and then one on the other end line, and then the same thing on the other side to create 2 rondos that are touching. And then we put the players into that, and then we have players, defenders come in and try and win the ball. And it's that simple. And what I'm really looking for, which we haven't done, is that support when the defenders have the ball. So now that the players can see that it's a rondo, then they start doing that support, receive the ball, or lose their defender by supporting and then going. And we do the exact same thing with our 2-3-1. Our 2-3-1, the only difference is that 2 defenders, 1 center mid, 2 wingers, and then our forward goes from side to side, acting as the top of the rondo. I've talked about rondos too much, so I'm not getting into the what our rules are for rondos. If you want more information about how I do my rondos, you can go back and there's a special episode just for rondos. I'm not sure what number it is, but there's definitely enough there. With our under 6s and under 7s, very rarely do we get into tactics or anything like that. The only time our U6s or U7s get into rondos and stuff like that is if they're good enough to play within our academy. Our academy usually starts at 7 years old, and we have like 2 or 3 6-year-olds. So if they are there, then they're part of the rondos. And then the way that we play games with our 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds is we'll play 4v4, and we'll play each team is in a rondo. So the goalkeeper, 2 players on the wide spaces, and then 1 player in the middle, and then that's all we're doing. So we're working in the rondos just so they can see that rondos are exactly how we play in the game. That's really what we look for. And when we do our session, we run our session with our under 7s all the way up to our under 10s, and we put them in based on where they are. So the U10s are usually one team, then the U9s are one team, and then everyone else are another team. And then we shuffle players. If it's too easy, we move them up. If it's too hard, we move them down. So what you'll see sometimes with our U10s is you'll see some 8-year-olds. You'll see some, I don't think there's any 7-year-olds, but there's definitely an 8-year-old in that pact. Within our U9s, There are some 10-year-olds, there are some 8-year-olds, there are some 7-year-olds. So we really try and move to find the players where they fit in within our academy and just keep them there. And we usually run 3 sessions at the same time for that introductory academy team. That the weakest or the newest players, they're going to start with that 4v4. Then our U10s and U9s, they're going to do our 7v7 within that rondo structure that I spoke about there. Then we also get into when the ball is on the strong side, we shift 1 half space. So you can start drawing your half spaces, center spaces, and wide spaces all in there to kind of shift the weak side players with both with the 2-3-1 or the 4-3-1. So that's going to be the players that are with the 7v7. It's the wingers that are shifting towards the strong side. And with the 9v9, it's the fullbacks and the attacking mids that are shifting as well. And I think that pretty much covers it. So I think I've talked about this in the past, but it's just something that I revisited very recently. So decided to put it on. And hopefully if you have a young team or a new team and you really want to start getting them to understand how they should be moving and how the rondos really come into the tactics and the formations, then this is one way to do it. When I was 17 years old, I went to a sleepover camp, and I was a counselor. I've been going to sleepover camp since I was 12, but my first year at a new camp, I was a counselor, and we had a camper from France who didn't speak English. He just really spoke French. And despite what most people think, most Canadians do not speak French fluently. Like, we do not. And I'm one of those people who just doesn't know any French. When I lived in Kansas, I took French 101 twice. So that's how good my French is. Anyway, so he came into the camp. He was one of my campers. And being in a new country, and especially a country with people that don't really speak your language, is very intimidating. So we sat there for breakfast, or I think it might have been lunch. I'm not sure. And he started crying, just like I actually did when I first attended sleepover camp. It's a very intimidating environment when you first get there. And the first thing that I do with campers, doesn't matter, or players, is I try and connect with them. So I started listing, different sports in French, and I used the word jouer, which I probably used wrong, which I think means play. And I said jouer football, and which means, I hope it means, play soccer. And he kind of, while he was crying, just kind of nodded. And, I said, okay. So we went outside, started playing soccer. And within 2 to 3 minutes, he was laughing and all that. And the reason I tell this story is because as a coach, the very first thing that I try and do with a new player is I try and connect with them. This camp environment that I'm in now is a very interesting environment because I have players of all ages, 5 years old all the way till 14 years old, I would say, or maybe I think I even have some 15-year-olds. So huge age range. And what I try and do with each one, because they're all beginners, none of them have any soccer backgrounds. So I try to connect with them. They've done, some of them, other sports, other things. So I try and connect with the individuals. And there were 2 things today that happened that really changed a couple of the way that I do things. So I wanted to share with that. And they all have to do with dance. Now, my history with dance isn't, I've never been professionally trained or anything like that, but I used to do birthdays, bar mitzvahs, and school dances. So I used to be a DJ, a dancer, and an MC as well. So within that kind of world, I really started to love to dance and all that. And there's always a special place in my heart for dancers and how hard they work and all that. So one of the girls, she's 6 years old, and she's a dancer. And we worked through the dog game, went through all the different moves. And when we got to the Maradona turn, when I was demonstrating, in the back, I just kind of heard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is a count that dancers use, or musicians or anyone. But she started counting the steps, and I turned around to watch this 6-year-old who's not athletic at all, has had a very tough time doing some of the other moves, with perfect rhythm getting the Maradona turn at 6 years old with no soccer background. And I went to her and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she looked at me and she said, "It's like a dance. So I'm just putting numbers to it like we do at my dance studio." And it just kind of clicked that what a great way to get the rhythm of how quickly of the speed, sorry, that you want the move to be. So a lot of the time when I do these move with these kids, it's very slow, which is fine, but I want to change the tempo at a certain point because I want it to be quick. So with her, just kind of opened my eyes to that, and I started doing it in a tempo. And suddenly, from 5 years old to 15 years old, players who have never played soccer before, the Maradona was done at a very fast pace because I could increase the speed of the count, the tempo, right? And the rhythm just kind of worked out. So we went, so with the Maradona turn, furthest foot steps across with a turn, sit, roll over, sit. And then I said roll heel to toe to bring that dog right back where it was. So it was 1, 2 for the turn and sit, 3, 4 for the rollover sit, 5, 6 to turn back. And we just kind of did it over and over and over again. And it was absolutely fantastic. So if you are doing the dog game with your players, try adding a count to it. It could help. At first it's, maybe 1, 2. So maybe if we're doing a step over, right, you're doing that step over in 1, 2, and then bring that other leg over in 3, 4, whatever, count you want to use. But really great and something that I'm going to use moving forward. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was shooting. As you know from the past 2, 3 episodes, when I had Andrew Clifton on, shooting is one of the things that I'm really trying to understand better how I can teach my players. And today, with that same girl, it just kind of clicked. So let me start off by saying how fortunate we are. The camp itself has a beautiful turf field, and the turf field is surrounded by a fence. So just a normal fence, and each fence has 2 poles that are sticking in it, and it goes all the way around. So what I did was I had the players line up throughout the whole field facing the fence, and they would shoot it in between 2 poles, 2 of the poles of the fences. So each kid had a net that they could be working towards. And I started with the very basics, which is step beside the ball, and then donkey kick, which is our the way that we do our fake shots. So pretty easy. All the kids got it. And then it's always been tough for me to, how do I teach the right contact? How do I teach which part of the foot? Because it's easy to say, oh, use your laces, use the instep, use the bone, toe down and out, lock the ankle. All these are words, but a 6-year-old can't get it. Doesn't matter what words you say, 6-year-old can't get it. So again, I went up to the 6-year-old girl and I said, oh, how's it going? She said, it's good, but the ball's not moving, which essentially to her meant the ball wasn't going fast enough. And I kind of looked at her and I said, oh, well, it's kind of like ballet. It's the same step. And now, okay, I'm definitely going to butcher this, but I looked it up. I just kind of had the image in my head of what it looked like. And I looked it up, and here's the name. It's called glissade ballet, and then it's GLISSADE. And then just type in ballet, and you'll see the image of what I'm talking about. This is the shape that I'm going to get my players in, and I'm going to talk you through how I did that. But essentially what it is, it's when they have their toe pointed out wide, and they're balancing on one foot. So I just kind of showed her that, and it just clicked, and then it just worked. So I'm going to walk you through what I did from that point. As soon as I saw that it worked, I did it for 12 players in a row, all players who have never played soccer before, and the contact was pure every single time. I'm not saying this is 100% going to work, but what I'm saying is it worked for me with every single one of the players. I'm going to do my best because this is an audio show. But if you really want the image of what this looks like at the end, all you're going to type in to Google is glissade ballet, and that's spelled Glissade, which translates to glide. Okay, and then just ballet, Ballet, ballet. That was spelling champion. No, not even close. But that's what you're going to type in, and then you're going to see the shape that I'm talking about. Okay, but I'm going to do my best to coach you through it, and I'm going to talk you through every single coaching point that I did. So here's the way I started out. I wanted them, the ball's not even close. I'm holding the ball. Okay, so there's no ball. So what I did was I wanted them to have their feet together with their toes pointing to the net. The net is the fence. That's how we started. We're going to have a strong foot, which is your shooting foot. Then we're going to have the weak foot, which is the foot that usually goes beside the ball and points to your target. And here's what I did. I took my finger and I put it on their weak foot, on their toe, and I said, I want you to put all your weight on your weak foot, on this foot right here that I'm holding. As soon as they did that, I said, okay, perfect. Take your strong foot, and I want you to move that foot as far wide as possible while only keeping your toe on the turf. So I only want your toe to touch the turf. Now, if you think about your leg, as it goes further and further away from the other leg, it's kind of like a clock. So if you can imagine a clock, the small hand, let's say, is on the 6, and let's say the big hand is moving towards the 3. At a certain point, you're going to be on that angle, and your toe is going to be the only thing that's going to be able to touch the ground. And if you stop it right there, that is the perfect form. That is exactly the technique that you need to shoot the ball. So what I did at that point was I took the ball and I put it right where their shooting foot is. And I said, do you see how the groove of your foot, do you see how your foot fits perfectly into that ball? And then all I said was, from here, I want you to keep your leg like this, which they have to. Okay, they're not going to be able to move it because all their weight is on the other foot. If your weight is not on the weak foot, then this is not going to work. The weight can't be balanced. Your weight when you're shooting is on your weak foot. From there, I wanted their strong foot to donkey kick back, which essentially means bring your leg back and then hit it. And I'm telling you, it worked every single time. Every single time. And if you do that 3-4 times with them, that's what they're going to see. And that's when they feel it and you see it, I promise you, you'll get it. So let's go through it again. Toes pointing forward together. Weight goes on the weak foot. Then I'm going to take my strong foot and I'm going to move it away like a clock. Away, until just my toe is touching the ground. And what's working really great here is if your toe's pointing straight, it becomes part of your body. It's just naturally how the body moves to get that shoelace pointing towards the target. And if you're with your player and they're essentially not in that perfect toe down and out position, it is simply because their foot is not wide enough. Because if you get that foot as wide as possible, then it's physically impossible not to be in that. Because your toe, while touching the ground, is extending that foot down and out. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, Segev, yes, maybe this works, but there's no chance that the feet should be that far wide. And I completely agree with you. But at this point, what I'm doing is I want them to get the technique exactly right with which part of the foot to hit it. And then once that happens over and over and over again, and only once it happens over and over and over again, and they get it constantly with that part, then we can start to bring the feet a little bit closer together and closer together until it works. But absolute game changer for me. And I really wanted to share that with you. Now, does this mean that I've cracked the code? No, it doesn't. What I've noticed with coaching is usually you think you've cracked the code and then you do it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more times, and then you'll start to find more and more and more. And this is exactly what happened. And I just want to walk you through the process of how I got to where I am with shooting, because it's exactly what I do with everything else. I went to an expert who for me was Andrew Clifton, And I saw what he did with his players, and I got him on the show, and we talked about it, and he gave all of the listeners a really great way to practice it, right? He, with his method of, the using the wall and how he used the baseball diamond, all that stuff. So I was in a great environment where I had, the fence. So I used it, and I just watched and watched and watched and kept doing it over and over and over again. And then it just kind of clicked with one player that this is like this, right? And the reason I was able to compare it to something was because I've done it so many times. When you do something so many times, your brain naturally can find links to other things. That's just the way the brain works. That's why when you look up in the sky, you can see shapes that aren't there. It's just your body and your brain kind of naturally making it. I don't know what it's called, but your brain essentially finds patterns. That's what our brain is trained to do. So I was able to find a pattern based on something previously because I've been doing shooting for so many times with the players. And it's like that with literally every single thing that I've done within my academy and within my coaching philosophy. Did that with rondos, did that with our all the moves that we do, and did it with 1v1, 1v1 plus 1, 2v2. Everything that we do is me repeating it 10, 20, 50 times until I've mastered it to a certain point, and then I'm able to find something new. So hopefully this helps you. I really, really hope it does, because I think shooting is one of the toughest things to teach players to get the right technique. So I really hope this helps you. And please, please, please Google it, because it'll make a lot more sense, I think, once you see it. Glissade. Glissade. Glissade ballet. I really hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation, but yeah. I really hope this helps you. And if it does, you can let me know in the comments on episode 331. This weekend is going to be a very, very interesting weekend. Most of our players are missing. That's just kind of, like I said earlier, that's the part of the season. And usually we have, for our 2010s, we have players that play kind of on both teams now because we're missing so many players, but even those players are gone. So we're going to have a lot of players missing, and we're going to have to figure something out. So we'll see what happens, and I'll keep you informed. But it's going to be a really interesting weekend. So I'll tell you about that when you hear from me next, which will be next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. Shooting has really been something that I think has been missing from my coaching tool belt, and I think it's been missing from an effective point of view. We still have shooting with 1v1s, 2v2s, and all that, but just teaching the right technique has really been missing. So I'll keep you posted, because I don't think this is the time to be talking about it, and this isn't what it's going to look like by the end. So we do have some more ideas that I want to try with my academy first before I talk about it here. So hopefully once I do, I'll be able to talk about it on the show. Just a reminder for anyone who's interested in VO, they're increasing the prices. So if you're looking to get a VO, now is the time. And you can use our code CSW100 for that. But other than that, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Weekly is a production of World Class Coaching. All rights reserved.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.